Hello and welcome to the Barcast. I'm your host, Nick Barr, coming to you on a chilly Monday morning here in New York. We are reaching the end of this translation project. We're on the last Enneagram number. We're introducing the 3 today. So why are we ending on the 3? Really just because I wanted to start on the 4, which is my home base, and I felt it was appropriate to start there. But now that we're finishing, I find it nice in a way that we're ending with the 3, because the 3 is, in some ways, runs really deep with many of us. Now, again, for myself, I have a 3 wing, being a 4. So I know the 3 viscerally, but the 3 is also oftentimes considered the kind of American number, American pragmatism, American achievement, American capitalism. These are all 3 energies. So we kind of live in a 3 society. Those of us who live in the US specifically, but also anyone who lives kind of in this tech capitalist whatever landscape that we're in. So as a result, I think we all have a lot of 3 in us. And then also I think 3 is one of the hardest numbers to really get to the heart of. It's maybe one of the most painful numbers to get to the heart of. And I think we'll see why in Naranjo's introduction here. So this is his brief introduction to the 3. As you'll recall, every chapter begins with a very brief description of the overall type before getting into the subtypes. So this is his introduction to vanity. The passion of vanity is the need to falsify one's own self, constructing a presentable personal image for the world with the expectation that this image will be accepted, loved, and validated. I just want to stop right there. So sometimes you'll see the passion of the 3 called deceit. Sometimes you'll see that be the fixation. I think Naranjo himself went back and forth between vanity and deceit. When we hear vanity, we have to be careful not to jump into the person who loves their image in the mirror, that kind of vanity. It's more of the old school vanity. So the etymology of vanity, that va sound, from vacuous or void, vanity, they're all etymologically related, and they all mean something like emptiness. Emptiness, like the way that a bubble is empty on the inside, and when it pops, it reveals its flimsiness. So that falsification, that construction of artifice, that is what's meant by vanity. And the futility of that project is also encoded in vanity. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity, from, because it's Ecclesiastes, like that's also important here. So it's this project, as Naranjo says, this need to falsify one's own self. Why? Because if I present this image, then this image will be accepted, loved, and validated. And the real self is abandoned in the process. So he continues, we could say that the vanity character represents the neurotic construction of that part of humanity that is compelled to manipulate itself to maintain emotional relationships, false self in Winnicott's terms. So you can see why the 3 is so central in some ways to the Enneagram, because all of the numbers describe a construction of the false self. All of the personality programmings are false self programmings. So what is it that makes the 3 special in this regard? I think it's that the 3 throws itself most fully into this construction of the false self so much that they deceive. Again, you hear that word. They deceive themselves and others that this false self is false at all. And that really can't be said of the other numbers. So let's take a type like 7, who, when we talked about the 7 in the past, we talked about fraudulence, scheming, planning. Those are all words that are sometimes used to describe the fixations of the 7. But the 7 is in contact with their own scheming, their own fraudulence. It's not easy work, but it's not going to cut them so deeply. If you look to a 7 and say, do you ever notice yourself saying something just to sort of get along with other people and have them agree with you so that you can avoid a tougher conversation? Do you ever notice yourself jumping from position to position without having any kind of inner coherence? A 7 with relative ease is going to say like, I know that I can do that sometimes. And you know what? I feel guilty about it. And guilt, it plagues kind of that 6-7 region because they know that they're not in accord with their true self. That is the core work for the 3. The 3, it's actually going to be a lot of transformation work for the 3 to arrive at the realization that this identity that they've created with maybe conventional success or happy family or popularity, good relationships, great friendships, beautiful trips to exotic locations, that somehow none of that is really nourishing their deep self. That's kind of their whole project. And it's going to be really hard also because the 3 does enjoy conventional success, probably more than the other types. So that's why we're talking about the false self in particular here, even though that really is the project of every number of the Enneagram is to recognize their false self and also recognize their true self. And Richard Rohr uses that language explicitly. So let's continue. This passion leads the 3 to transfer its energetic charge into functional action in response to the expectations of the external world. It develops a considerable ability to perceive what the context demands and adapts to it. The self-manipulation as a product for sale manifests both on the aesthetic level and in operational efficiency. Thus, the illusion is forged that this transformation can be identified with oneself. This strategy implies a disconnection from one's own emotions and needs. They are so immersed in this exhausting activity that they even adapt their thoughts and actions to those of others. They identify with what they have falsified, believing in their false image, fixation, and losing all connection with their inner truth. So a false image is the fixation, or deceit is the fixation. And image and false image is also remember the 3 is the core number of the feeling triad. So the 2 and the 4 are also being named essentially here. But the 3, that's really just, false image is the core of the 3. Whereas with the 2, as we saw, denial of needs while meeting the needs of others, being a pleaser, is more of the energy of the 2. And way back at the beginning when we talked about the 4, authenticity, specialness, truth, creativity, making your mark on the world, those are more of the concerns of the 4. But they're all related to image. But the 3 is really so merged with their false image that their self-manipulation is complete. Their self-manipulation is so complete that they see themselves as Narno says here, a product for sale. Or you'll sometimes hear about the marketing mindset. And, again, a lot of us do this all the time. if you notice yourself trying to write something profoundly true, but you're writing it as if it were a blog post, a Medium post, a Substack post, something like that, you're in that 3 energy. It's like, I feel like so many of us, especially in this technological landscape, when we sit down to write, it's the same as standing up on a podium and putting our mouth to the microphone. They're completely merged, and that's not good. That's not good. But it is our structures that are kind of captivating us these days. So Naranjo continues, in order to capture the gaze of others, they combine their capacity for transformation with sexual attractiveness, but their seduction is more directed toward responding to the pleasure of others than to the satisfaction of their own pleasure. The passion for constructing an acceptable image of oneself underlies the flight from everything undefined or non-concrete. Therefore, uncertainty, unfinished situations, mystery, waiting, ambiguity become a source of anxiety. Every shadow is perceived as destructive to the constructed image. Failure, I would throw in there as well as terrifying to the 3, as I'm sure we'll get to see in the future. During childhood, they learn to be a pleasant, smiling, and compliant child to meet the expectations of a mother who, in most cases, is demanding and cold and who tends to project onto the child her own narcissistic satisfaction needs. Whether it concerns the father or the mother, people with a type 3 character report feeling like a beautiful object to be presented to the world, an extension of their parents. In relationships, they demonstrate hyper-adaptation and fear of conflict. In their eagerness to do, they become disconnected from their inner world as well as from the inner world of others. So that's Naranjo's introduction to the 3. We'll say more as we work on the subtypes, but I'll just add, a few other pieces here. The 3 has a real feeling of needing to perform. So that doing, it's doing and it's also performing. It's also like an object, like a good, like a product in the marketplace, right? If this microphone I'm looking at that I bought doesn't perform, I will be angry. I will discard it. I will write a 1-star review. I will throw it away, right? So if you feel that product energy, then your need to perform is absolute, because what good are you if you're not performing? So I am what I do. Is very important for 3s. A pragmatism. We're way far away from the morality of the doing triad of doing what's right. Now we're doing what works, and what works is defined in mostly through what society views as working. So it's really, I need to do what works, and what works is defined by others. This is why the 3 is both feeling centered, right? We're in the feeling triad, so all 3 types are super attuned to feeling what others are feeling, what I'm feeling, what the vibe, vibes, you could say. But the 3 takes all of that feeling and then puts it aside and then does what needs to be done. So where the 2 and the 4 can get kind of caught in feelings, the 3 has a profound capacity to tune into feelings, but then puts their own feelings completely to the side. So this is a type that succeeds in political situations. I don't just mean politics, I mean any organization or any group of more than, say, 3 people, because of how innately tuned in they are to feelings, and then their ability to completely put feelings aside and do what needs to be done or do what works or perform in a way that will result in achievement and success. So that's our introduction to the 3, and we'll get to know the social 3 next. See you there.